For the Sake of the Donkeys, from Starlight on the Veld, by Herman Bosman. Recently republished in Marico Moon. It was a cold night, Skulk Lawrence said, and the stars shone with that frosty sort of light that you see on the wet grass some mornings, when you forget that it is winter and you get up early by mistake. The wind was like a girl sobbing out her story of betrayal to the stars. Jan Okkerse and I had been to Derdepoort by donkey cart. We came back in the evening, and Jan Okkerse told me of a road round the foot of a koppie that would be a short cut back to Droogevlei. Thus it was that we were sitting on the veld, close to the fire, waiting for the morning. We would then be able to ask a Shangaan to tell us a shortcut back to the foot of that koppie.
But I know that was the right road,
Jan Okkerse insisted, flinging another armful of wood on the fire. Then it must have been the wrong koppie, I answered, or the wrong donkey cart, unless you also want me to believe that I am at this moment sitting at home in my voorkamer. The light from the flames danced frostily on the spokes of a cartwheel, and I was glad to think that Jan Okkerse must be feeling as cold as I was.
It's a funny sort of night,
Jan Okkerse said.
And I am very miserable and hungry.
I was glad of that too. I had begun to fear that he was enjoying himself.
Do you know how high up the stars are?
Jan asked me next. No, not from here, I said. But I worked it all out once when I had a pencil. That was on the high veld though. But from where we are now in the low veld, the stars are further away. You can see that they look smaller too.
Yes, I expect so,
Jan Okkerse answered.
But a school teacher told me a different thing in the bar at Zeerust. He said that the stargazers work out how far away a star is by the number of years that it takes them to find it in their telescopes. This school teacher dipped his finger in the brandy and drew a lot of pictures and things on the bar counter to show me how it was done. But one part of his drawings always dried up on the counter before he had finished doing the other part with his finger. He said that was the worst of that sort of dry brandy. Yet he didn't finish his explanation because the barmaid came and wiped it all off with a rag. Then the school teacher told me to come with him, and he would use the blackboard in the other classroom. But the barmaid wouldn't allow us to take our glasses into the private bar, and the school teacher fell down just about then too.
He seems to be one of that new kind of school teacher, I said. The kind that teaches the children that the earth turns around the sun. I'm surprised they didn't sack him.
Yes,
Jan Okkerse answered.
they did.
I was glad to hear that also. It seemed that there was a waterhole near where we were outspanned, for a couple of jackals started howling mournfully. Jan Okkerse jumped up and piled more wood on the fire.
I don't like these wild animal noises, he said.
They're only jackals, Jan, I said.
I know, he answered. But I was thinking of our donkeys. I don't want our donkeys to get frightened.
Suddenly a deep growl came to us from out of the dark bush, and it didn't sound a particularly mournful growl either. Jan Okkerse worked very fast then with the wood.
Perhaps it would be even better if we made 2 fires and lay down between them,
Jan Okkerse said.
Our donkeys will feel less frightened if they see that you and I are safe. You know how a donkey's mind works.
The light of the fire shone dimly on the skeletons of the tall trees that the white ants had eaten, and we soon had 2 fires going. By the time that the second deep roar from the bush reached us, I had made an even bigger fire than young Okkerse, for the sake of the donkeys. Afterwards it got quiet again. There was only the stirring of the wind in the thorn branches and the rustling movement of things that you hear in the bushveld at night. Jan Okkerse lay on his back and put his hands under his head, and once more looked up at the stars.